Part of what I'm going to talk about is stripping away from this proposal called New York Health, a very innocuous sounding proposal, and talk about just its fiscal impact, because its fiscal impact on the state of New York is devastating. It is the largest mandate the state could ever impose on the people of this state. It's ironic, the day before Halloween, that this would be the biggest trick you could ever do. The Democrats have tried to make the New York Health Bill a matter of policy as part of their politics. Well, I want to use the politics of the season to turn people against this as a policy, because the numbers are simply staggering. Now you're going to say, well, how can you be doing this? You must be, if you're not for New York Health, you must not be for health. And believe me, I have spent myriad amount of time, numerous bills, lots of budgets to make sure the state's health system is improving as much as possible. In fact, the last statistic we have from the comptroller of the state is that 95% of the residents of this state have health insurance coverage. So it's not as if there's a big gap out there. And we have been very big in promoting what was the Affordable Care Act. But what's the problem? Well, you start to look at the cost of this. And the cost we get is from a study that the New York Health Foundation paid for from the RAND Corporation. And the RAND Corporation started to say, well, what will this cost? And they went through a lot of different details and combinations and all of that. But right in their preface, they started to say this would cost $210 billion when implemented fully in 2032. Now, to start off with, they would say in a couple of years it would start off at $110 billion. Well, okay, you get lost in all of the numbers. What do we have to compare it with? What we have to compare it with is the current state budget, which is total for everything, whether it be for roads and health or education, $170 billion. So wait a minute, we're going to start with about 60% of what the current state budget is, and then we're going to go much higher, just all as addition for this New York Health? I'll tell you, it's crazy. And then, how are you going to pay for it? Well, there's a number of different ways. Do you do what combination of taxes would there be? Well, we said we have to start with a measuring stick. What would be the best measuring stick? If this came about as a personal income tax increase, that would be the measuring stick. Then from there, you can say, well, it doesn't all have to be personal income tax. Some of it could be corporate, some of it could be less. But in the press release, we talk about the current income tax paid by the average Nassau County residents, and it's $7,600. If you take the cost of the fully phased-in New York Health bill that's proposed by the Democrats, that would add $20,000 a year in personal income tax to the average Nassau County taxpayer, for a total of $28,000 a year in just personal income tax. And you say, well, what if you don't use the average? What if you use somebody who's a high-paying taxpayer, a policeman or woman and a working spouse? Well, they'd be earning $175,000. What would they be paying as a new tax bill? $35,000 in new personal income taxes. Suppose it's someone not earning as much, they're only earning $60,000. Well, all of a sudden, their new tax bill would go up by $5,300. In other words, this is an enormous mandate on the taxpayers of the state of New York, and it's something that we cannot afford to do. Already the highest tax state for personal income tax, for businesses, for any number of measurements, and then to start adding on. So this is not something that's lightly said. We looked at all of the platforms of the Democrats who are running for the Senate this year in Nassau County. They're all for this New York Health Act. So it's not as if they've just adopted it willy-nilly. They have to be held accountable. Taxpayers in the state have to be protected, and we have to be responsible.
Thank you, Kemp.